Emperor Taizong, the second emperor of the Tang Dynasty, is seen here depicted sitting in a sedan chair carried and fanned by quite a few court ladies, while giving an audience to the envoys of Tibet. This painting, in fact, gives clues to the connection between Wang Xizhi calligraphy and the emperor. Although Tang Dynasty succeeded in unifying China, the cultural divergence between various parts of China persisted, especially between the north and the south. The way the Emperor Taizong is portrayed here in public with many lady attendants had not been very common in the north. Traditionally, emperors from the north are depicted standing majestically with two male attendants on each side. For example, here Emperor Wu Di from Jin Dynasty in the north is depicted in this fashion. The manner in which Emperor Taizong had chosen to have himself depicted derives from the southern tradition of emperor portraiture. And here you see an example of the portrait of Emperor Wen Di of southern Qin Dynasty. Prior to Tang Dynasty, the north consists of many clans of different ethnic groups, was plagued by warfare and disintegration, whereas the south became home to many cultured families escaping from the north. Compared to the militant rulers of the north, the southern emperors were more concerned with personal cultivation and ruling society via civil government. Particular calligraphic styles are also associated with different cultures between the north and the south. Whereas stelae were more commonly carved to preserve writings in the north, the southerners were writing on paper and silk, such as in the case of Wang Xizhi. If we compare the character Suo in a rubbing from the north and the way Wang Xizhi writes the same character, even without knowing the Chinese language, one can tell that Wang Xizhi's character displays a far less rigid structure and a far more fluid brushstrokes than the ink rubbing produced in the north. While the character Shu is rendered in a very austere manner with no two strokes connecting to one another in the ink rubbing, the same character is written with connecting brushstrokes displaying playful undulation in Wang Xizhi's hand. By choosing to be depicted following the southern tradition of emperor portraiture, Emperor Taizong further claimed cultural allegiance to the south by propagating Wang Xizhi's calligraphy. He collected over 2,000 pieces of Wang Xizhi's calligraphy and also personally composed the entry of Wang Xizhi's biography for the official history of the Jin Dynasty. Wang Xizhi's elegant, fluid script and his well-educated and refined background made him and his calligraphy the cultural civil model during the Taizong reign in the Tang Dynasty. Emperor Taizong, the military conqueror of partial Turkish heritage, was perhaps in need to represent himself and by extension his state as civil and cultured as possible by assimilating many cultural traditions from the south. When Emperor Taizong died, he had the original preface to the Orchid Pavilion buried with him underground. The relationship between leadership and cultural authority is crucial to statecraft throughout Chinese history. The more familiar example would be how Chairman Mao was also known for his poems and calligraphy. One of his most famous poems was incised on a large piece of rock in his own calligraphy in Hunan. Mao's calligraphic style is still very popular among current practitioners of calligraphy. However, not because of its political association at all, but the idiosyncratic style that stands for his bold and daring personality. Even if the Orchid Pavilion did not survive, the stories and legends around it are enough to illustrate the history of calligraphy in China. From Wang Xizhi's inventive writing script to Wang Xizhi as a state-sponsored orthodox style, his writing is preserved through centuries of copying. Yet, It is also precisely due to this perpetual copying that the original trace of his hand is lost to us.